Well, welcome everybody to August 2022's Lunch and Learn. I am Jessica Hamlin, the Executive Director of Shumla Archaeological Research and Education Center. We are so excited to have you. If you wouldn't mind putting yourself on mute for right now, we will definitely have time later for a question and answer. But today I'm so excited to introduce you to Dr. Diana Rodillo-Rolón. She is a fantastic archaeologist and researcher who has a BA, MA, and PhD from the National School of Anthropology and History in Mexico City. She has studied Mexican and Mesoamerican iconography and archaeology her whole career. For the last 2 years, she has been working with Dr. Carolyn Boyd at Texas State University as a postdoctoral student. And you are almost the first to know that she will be joining Shumla's team officially as a senior preservation archaeologist starting next month. So we are very, very excited to have her. And her research around felines in Lower Pecos and Pecos River Style rock art is truly unbelievable. And you are going to enjoy this so much today. One last thing to say is that she will be giving this very same presentation in Spanish in 2 months. So stick with us. Make sure you sign up for our e-newsletter on our website so that you know when that's coming up. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Diana.
Thank you, Jessica. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Lunch and Learn presentation. As Jessica said, I'm so happy to be part of Shumla Archaeological Research and Education Center staff. And today, I will present the results of my postdoctoral research, which was focused in the documentation and interpretation of Pecos River Style rock art, including felines. The felines in this style stand out for their big size, for their artistic magnificence, but they also stand out for their physical attributes and the variation of the physical attributes. In this presentation, I will talk about general and specific categories used to document felines, and I'll show you some repetitive elements and patterns to learn about diagnostic attributes and their association or possible association with cultural meanings. Okay, let's see some felines. The region is the Lower Pecos Canyonlands, situated within the Grand Chichimeca at the edge of the Edwards Plateau and the Chihuahuan Desert. The northern half of the Lower Pecos lies in southwest Texas and the southern half in Coahuila, Mexico. Near the region's center, the Pecos and Devils River converge with the Rio Grande. The polychromatic murals are dating to the Middle Archaic. Current data shows that Pecos River style pictographs were painted from 5500 to 1300 Cal BP. Radiocarbon ages for the art suggests it remained in production for more than 3,000 years, persisting into the late Archaic. BP means before present. It is a time reference used in archaeology and other scientific disciplines as a standard for specifying when an event occurred in the past. During my research, I have used the Alexandria Project database. I consulted reports and high-definition photographs to document and analyze 58 feline figures from 11 sites in the Lower Pecos Canyonlands region. I recorded in detail the visual attributes for each figure to create a catalog. I also made illustrations for each figure using an interactive pen display and Adobe Photoshop.
Oh my gosh. I gotta go to the institute.
I wrote a manual with the general guidelines to describe Pecos River Style feline iconography. We can see the map here and the location of the sites in the region. I follow Shumla's protocol. Each feline has a reference code consisting of the site name and trinomial code followed by one letter and one unique identification number. However, documentation is a work in progress and some figures are waiting for a permanent reference code. The felines in that situation were included in this study. I kept the reference code and added an extra letter T for a temporary number before the figure number to make a distinction between the felines with a Shumla official code and felines with a temporary number assigned solely for the purpose of this investigation. I also included anthropomorph with feline attributes or felines with human paraphernalia. The documentation follows hierarchical structure to record an average of 50 attributes per feline. Respectively, each category displays specific attributes to examine as detailed as possible the graphic representation. I created a manual to explain how to describe each feline. The document has major categories. The major categories include general attributes and specific attributes. Today, I'll show some of these diagnostic categories and attributes to document felines. The major categories are in red, and general and specific attributes in black. We're gonna talk about color, patterning, outline, attitude and aspect, tail, legs, body, head, and sensory signs. Let's start with color. Colors play a vital role in rock art. Colors have meanings, are associated with powers or entities, and follow a sequence that responds to sacred indigenous cosmovision. There are 4 colors in Pecos River Style rock art, and the felines have 4 colors too: black, red, yellow, and white. Red is the most common color for felines, and here we can see the 3 examples. This is the only red color feline, this is red and white, and this is black, red, yellow, and white. The next category important is the patterning. Shumla's documentation guidelines designates 3 categories to describe anthropomorph shapes. Felines are also candidates to use those concepts. The first is center style, will indicate the felines with any kind of decoration inside the body or depicted with more than one color. Non-center style for felines painted entirely of the same color and lack decoration inside. And negative is used when the felines are not in field and the shape is created by either hatched or continuous lines. The examples are here. Center style for felines created by 2 different colors or with designs inside. Non-center style for felines with 1 color and no other decoration inside, and negative for felines without designs inside and just created by a contour. The next category is outline. It refers to the line that shows or creates the outer edges of the shape. Outline is also sometimes called the contour. In this study, the felines have different outline types. They might have continuous lines like this, hatch lines like this, partially interrupted lines like this, and a combo of continuous line or hatch lines and continuous lines. Other two interesting categories are attitude and aspect. The idea comes from the heraldry. We use it to describe the situation in which the feline is depicted and the direction of its head. For example, if it is running, walking, leaping, or sitting, and if it is in profile left, profile right, up or down, as seen by the viewer. Following the heraldry, we propose that the attitude and the aspect are two concepts used together to explain different feline postures. We have kept 6 original names from the heraldry, and we have created one attitude more to document these articulated felines. The first is salient. The feline is leaping with both hind legs together on the ground and both forelegs together in the air. The feline is facing forward. The next is statant. The feline is standing all 4 feet on the ground, and the feline is facing forward. The next is courant. The feline is full stride with all 4 legs in the air, and the feline is facing forward too. The next is regardant. This feline may be salient, statant, or courant, but the difference this time is the feline has its head turned backward as if looking over its shoulders. The next is guardant. The figure same may be salient, statant, or courant, but this time the feline has its head turned looking at the viewer, like this. The next is combatant. When 2 felines in profile are facing each other, in Pecos River Style, most of the time there is an anthropomorph or enigmatic between both felines. And finally, our new category is disarticulated, when the feline has the tail, the legs, the head or hair just detached from the body. Here we can see 2 examples of Pecos River Style felines using attitude and aspect. At the top, salient on profile left, and the bottom, courant, getting down and facing right. The next important category is the tail. The tail is a very important attribute for felines, and it doesn't matter the feline attitude. Most of the tails appears raised and curved, but there are a few curly, like this, curly tail. In this case, the tail is incomplete. Sometimes we can see felines with half body painted on purpose, and another times the absence of parts is a consequence of spalling, like in this case. To describe the tail, we will collect specific attributes: the patterning, the color, position and type, if has or not pilo erection, if it's width or thick, its orientation, and the outline. Here we have 2 examples with raised and curved tails. The pilo erection of the tail could be monochromatic or have an alternating color pattern. There is a fascinating variety. Sometimes full coverage pilo erection surrounds the whole tail, while others have a bare tail or a tail with pilo erection grouped in sections. This is bare tail and just a few pilo erection. Now the legs. Each feline may have different legs. A variation of the number of claws and presence or absence or do claws is present, as note legs, paws, claws are or dew claws may appear unattached to the body. Actually, this figure has disarticulated legs, are not attached to the body. In each case, we consider different attributes and describe front legs and hind legs by separate. We consider the pose, the shape, if these legs are straight, long, wide, the color is red, the patterning is not center style, the hatch lines are the contour or piloerection and are disarticulated of the body. Here we can see the forelegs in detail. We have a view of the dew claw. This is the dew claw and the claws. And here we can see the black bracelet. The feline has a black bracelet. In the case of claws, each feline may have a different number and sometimes a variation of shapes, length, and thickness. We are documenting all the details, or as detailed as possible. Here we can see the forelegs, both forelegs and hind legs might have minimal modifications that change the general appearance of the figure. Felines have legs posed forward, backward, or downward. Sometimes legs are made with one brush stroke, like in this case. In other cases, legs have hatch lines and negative spaces inside, like this, or hatch lines with color inside. The felines might have legs created by one brush stroke plus outlined contours. In a few cases, the felines have paws like this. Like this. And the paws are rounded shapes between the legs and claws. We can see also a variation in the coverage of piloerection. Full piloerection when both sides of the legs are surrounded by lines. Partial piloerection when the lines are grouped into sections on the leg or are visible just on one side. And finally, if the hair or piloerection is absent, the feline is described as having bare legs. The body. It is fundamental to describe the body and its characteristics. It doesn't matter if its attitude or aspect. The body also has a general shape defined following the different standard forms like oval or rectangular, and their backs could be concave or straight. In addition, sometimes the body has a specific pattern. Felines may have even color, empty bodies, or empty areas inside the body or inside the head. Sometimes the artists made lines inside the body using the strokes to create a visual effect of texture. And in a few cases, felines could have dots inside the body. Sometimes figures have gender markers or other animal attributes. The felines may have biological characteristics depicted with graphic representations of sexual organs in their bodies, like in these cases. Felines can also show other specific animal qualities like antlers, hooves, or feathers. The next category is the head. It is important to point out here that the head is one of the most stylized body parts in Pecos River Style felines, and that's the reason it's very common to find variation in its appearance. The head includes, again, many specific attributes, such as eyes and ears, and if the head has hair, mouth, fangs, and nose. Most of the time, Pecos River Style felines have the head depicted in profile. Let's see some examples here. Some heads are totally painted like this, and like this. Another may have an empty space inside. This empty space, living on purpose, empty, and has tiny lines inside. And other ones are completely empty heads, no color. We have documented at least 3 different snout types based on shape. Angular snout. This is the angular snout, which shows a triangular shape, rounded when the snout is curved and flat, and protruding when it is curved but is prominent. When the feline has a mouth, it appears open. The fangs are depicted with short straight lines, and the number should record. Regarding hair or piloerection, Pecos River Style felines could have a hairless head, like these examples, or a full coverage hair piloerection, including the ears. And finally, we can see felines without eyes, with 1 eye or 2 eyes. A recurrent motif in Pecos River Style murals is the speech breath, the representation of painted lines and dots exiting or entering the mouth of anthropomorphic and zoomorphic figures. Felines have these lines exiting their mouths and lines coming down their noses, like this. Okay. Once I finish the description using major categories, general and specific attributes, I created a catalog to arrange and display all the information collected for each figure. This is an example. I also added specifications for more details in each section. Altogether, the data collected could be used to contrast the patterns found in Pecos River Style feline pictographs with cultural symbolisms. For example, Boyd and Busby, have reported 90 representations of human and animal figures with a speech breath, including felines. They argue that Lower Pecos artists used this graphic device to signify speech breath and vital forces entering or exiting the body. I have a list of 19 felines with sensory signs and 10 used with speech breath. But I would like to see some details. We saw some examples, but let's see in detail. We can see here, again, the feline with squiggly lines exiting the mouth and 1 thick line coming down from nose. And 2 felines with dots exiting the mouths. And in this case, the felines are using the black bracelets, like the other case. It's the same black bracelet. So we can see variations and combinations of different attributes and elements. Here we can see, in some cases, artists depicted a speech breath throughout the combination of lines or dots. And this feline has also a peculiar unpainted head, and this feline has lines in the jaw. Some felines with a speech breath include piloerection and empty bodies. Another interesting attribute is exaggerated lines extending from the nape and underside of the neck. It is possible to see that these lines are in polychrome, in 2 colors, and in red felines. This is the lines on the nape and the neck, in the neck, and are present in polychromatic and just red felines. And finally, we found felines that have lines coming down from their armpit. Some felines have the same number of lines. And again, they have the lines, but other elements, like this has bare body, bare tail. This has piloration in the body, but bare tail. This has nape lines and armpit lines and gender markers. So we have a variation of attributes depending of the feline. In Mesoamerica, artists used graphic devices to denote action, sounds, scents, and energies in motion linked to sensory experiences or vital substances. For example, words, the voice, speech, odor, taste, sounds, wind, roar, breath, or blood. The scholars mention that the symbols refer to the sensory memory. It means that the people knew the codes to understand the shapes in the narrative and recognize how these graphic elements sounded when they watched them in the images. Humans and animals have animistic centers with concentrations of vital forces. Those animistic forces have the power and autonomy to be exhalated throughout holes and joints. I'm using this example to show one Teotihuacan feline. Is this feline? With this Teotihuacan feline has shapes coming from the mouth, just like Pecos River Style felines. However, we can continue talking about a comparative analysis between both kind of felines in another presentation. For now, the proposal is that indigenous of the lower Pecos as Mesoamerican indigenous used lines and dots as communicative graphic codes to convey us something. The lines, patterning, colors, positions, and directions are not random elements. Each attribute means something. The repetition and variation of graphic codes help us to understand better patterns and associate that patterns with a possible cultural meanings. And that's it. Thank you so much. So the bracelets indicate capture felines. Oh, okay. The bracelets. Sometimes the bracelets are interpreted as areas, cover areas, because the substances, the vital substances can escape or can be exhalated out of the body. And sometimes the black bracelets are interpreted as something as protections of that areas to cover vulnerable areas for the external things, more than capture felines. And no, the depiction of the speech breath lines, as we saw, is not unique to Pecos River Style, and actually is a very interesting attribute to make a comparative analysis between other groups even is present in South America. In Mesoamerica and South America exists a representation of speech-bred lines in felines and in humans. And I think how many felines? I document 58 felines from 11 sites. Okay, how many of the felines are interacting? All the felines are interacting with other figures. The felines are not alone. The figures are part of the whole composition and are interacting with other human figures and with other enigmatic figures. Yeah, actually, the whole composition and the meanings couldn't be interpreted just considering one figure, figure by figure. It's necessary to put together all the figures to try to understand the whole composition, the whole narrative. So the felines are interacting all the time with other figures, including humans. And the felines could be represent species, but even they could represent mythical creatures or deities. Sometimes possess human attributes or human paraphernalia, and the felines could be felines and deities too. How many felines have spots? I need to check, but at least I remember a couple of felines with the spots, and humans with feline attributes have spots. The humans with feline attributes have spots. Your map showing locations.
Diana, would it help you if I asked the questions so you didn't have to read them and answer?
Yes.
Okay, let me do that. Let me kind of, because I see there's so many questions, so wonderful. So one of the things about the spots was a second question. Do you feel that they represent pumas or jaguars, or do you have any kind of sense of that?
Yeah, it could be represent pumas or jaguars, of course. Yeah.
So the next question was, your map showing locations of felines that you studied are on east and west sides of the basin. Do you plan to study whether there are differences in felines on the east and west?
It's a good idea. Extend the documentation is as much as better.
Yeah, and we're definitely laying not only geography over the study of the felines and all attributes, but we're laying chronology over that same study to not only determine whether there's differences in the ways that figures are depicted geographically, but whether there's differences in the way they're depicted over time. So that'll be really amazing. Stay tuned.
Yeah, actually, my idea is extend the documentation beyond the border and go to Mexico.
Yes.
Document felines in the other side.
That's exactly what we want to do, for sure. Next question, could they be jaguarundis or ocelots?
Absolutely, yeah. I have seen in all documents sometimes description about very weird creatures similar to cats and probably be jaguarundis.
Yeah. Awesome. I can answer the next one. This is this actually came to me directly. How were the colors created for the pictographs? So the people of the Pecos used mineral pigments, And they specifically used iron oxides and manganese, we believe, and think possibly gypsum for white. But they used water, fat, animal fat, mineral pigments, and we think the base of the sotol root that is kind of a soapy substance that brings all that water and fat and mineral pigments together to create such a beautiful paint. So that's how those colors were created. Next, is it possible to know the spiritual meaning of felines for these murals?
Yeah, I believe that everything is telling us something. Anything is depicted just because or random elements. Altogether, the elements are associated with spiritual meanings and ancient indigenous knowledge and cosmovision and religion, and contains very strong concepts who persist through all the time, and of course has strong meanings and spiritual meaning.
Yeah, I wish that we had time today for Diana to tell us more about this, because she has been looking deeply into the different interpretations of not only feline figures, but all figures in the Pecos River style, and so much more to come on that topic. She and Carolyn have been working together, and it's just incredible what they're finding. So we'll definitely have more lunch and learns and publications coming from Diana and very soon. So stay tuned again for that. Do the felines and actions read from right to left? Probably all directions.
Yes, they are facing different directions, and of course the directions could be associated with cardinal directions, with elements in the sky, with the sun, with the stars, with the Milky Way, with yeah, the felines are facing specific directions which are associated, for example, for the solstice. And that's the reason they're facing in different, depends of the position of the shelter too.
Yes, all of it has meaning. So incredible. This one also, I think, came directly to me. Do you believe that the creation of these pictographs were made by persons culturally allowed or approved to make them, or just anyone with an artistic urge? We think that the creation of these murals, they're so huge, and there's so much resource that was required to create them. It would have been something that they did as a community. Whether that's just their band size, or whether it was a larger community as they came together for pilgrimage or different reasons, we don't know yet. It does make sense that there would have been a person or persons who were particularly skilled at the actual painting process, but that process itself would have actually been sort of the smaller amount of time for the production of the entire mural, which would have required all the planning, making sure all solar and lunar and such alignments made sense, figuring out what story was to be told and how it would be depicted, gathering all of the resources, getting prepared for the process. So it was definitely not just an urge and kind of a quick thing that someone did. It was well planned, highly complex, and there may have been a specific artist, but it would have been involved in the entire community. I hope that answers the question. Chester is joking. Could any of the cats have been chupacabras? He asked. We hope not. Marglim asks, are there any felines that are facing forward other than the feline-anthro combo?
Yeah, facing forward, most of the felines are facing forward. Few are facing to the viewer or looking backward.
Yeah, And I think you gathered that data in your survey too, didn't you?
Yeah.
So do you consider forward being just like, would you just see the head and two arms? Would that be a full face forward, or?
Yeah, it's because the felines most of the times are facing forward, and we considering in profile
Okay.
forward.
So very rarely would you see a feline that wasn't in profile.
Profile. Mhm.
Got it.
So I meant front on, not forward, but front on, like you're looking at.
Straight at the head.
Yeah, because most of the time, not all the time, but most rock art, the animals seem to be in profile, like, and that's what I would define your ones. They're looking forward, but what I meant was front on, like like I see your face here as opposed to if
Right.
you
Two
turn-
eyes, nose, two
Yeah.
ears.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just one. We have one watch with two eyes.
So rarely. So that probably is meaningful.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else have we got?
One or two.
Oh, so you just remembered another one?
I remember another one.
The Maya revered jaguars as gods, hunters and warriors. I believe the ancestors that lived around the Pecos River also saw them around there the same way, very likely, as certainly, imbued with magical and deification and power. Nancy asked, do they show what they may be attacking? And the first question in that would be whether they are attacking anything. What do you say to that, Deanna?
I don't know if they are attacking, but in my opinion, when the energy needs to be in movement, the forces are in movement, the air is coming, or the substances are coming out or exiting. To me, it's more movement. Because in the narratives, in different narratives and myths, the story saying, if necessary, to keep the movement keep the movement in the world or in the cosmos to get the creation of the world or the creation of the cycles or the renewal of the renewal of cycles depends of the movement. So most attacking could be this kind of movement or movement of substances and vital forces.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the Pecos River Style, we don't see a lot of what we are interpreting as warfare or fighting, or even two cats or two animals or two humans that are against each other. We generally see a much more kind of depiction of creations and myths and things. If things are happening, I mean, Deanna, am I kind of right to say that
things are happening and substances and vital forces are involved in the things happening.
Yeah.
But in some parts of Mesoamerica, for example, in sites as Chalcatzingo, we can see felines on humans.
Yeah, actually attacking them.
Other things, but here no.
Yeah. Awesome. Do you have any other questions? I think I've reached the bottom of it. Or were there any questions that were missed from above that we might not have captured?
Jessica, this is Jim. I've got a question.
Yeah.
In Fate Bell Annex, there's an anthropomorphic figure that has an animal perched on each shoulder. Have those animals been studied? And if so, are they feline, canine, or what?
I would have to pull up that shelter to remember.
Yeah, and in the high part of the ceiling, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. On the kind of to the left side, high up, yes.
Yes, those felines are two felines in profile up and are very hard to see because are in poor preservation.
Yeah.
But those felines actually have the spots and are associated with humans in the front view and are like in the sides of the humans.
Another question, again, in the annex, on the far right side of the shelter, some years ago, Charles told me that there are two very, very faint jaguars on that side of the shelter facing each other. And they only, you know of those? Okay.
Yes, yes, it's very, two very faint.
Yes, yes.
It's so hard to see them.
Yeah. And another question in the annex again, since I guide that tour a lot, the so-called spitting panther or roaring panther, the one you showed with the red paint coming out of the mouth and the upper body being empty without color. The entire body, including the claws, legs, ears, everything is red. The paint coming out is red. Is there any possibility that when the artist painted that figure, the red paint coming out of the mouth, the speech breath, represents the soul or spirit of that animal after death?
Well, sometimes when the substances abandon the body, represents the end of the cycle or the end of the movement or the end of the rain season and the beginning of the dry season. That's the equivalence to the death, the ends and endings and beginnings. That's representing for the abandoned substance of the substances abandons body.
I believe, Jim, that Carolyn actually included that specific figure in her speech breath paper that she wrote. If you Google speech breath in American antiquity, it's available online. You can see that paper. What she discovered at that particular image is that not only are the lines drawn coming out of that feline's mouth, but the lines are also drawn coming in. And you can tell by the way that the paint was laid down, and it's really, really fascinating. So take a look at that article and send an email to Carolyn if you have more questions, because she has some ideas too about that. I think she and Diana are going to dig into that even more.
Yeah. Yeah, depends of the direction of the strokes, because it's incredible how many times the directions of the strokes are visible. And you can see if the lines are coming, exiting or entering, and telling us what's happening, if it's ending or beginning, or is coming in or exiting.
Yeah.
The artist thought in that all the time.
Yeah. What's the most number of felines you've seen at one site?
Well, the most number of felines, maybe Panther Cave has 9 felines. 9 big felines.
Yeah.
The polychromatic, big, huge felines.
Another question is, are the felines a mixture of pictographs and petroglyphs?
No petroglyphs here. No, just pictographs.
Also a question, I'm wondering if natives would conduct rituals before painting involving mescal tea, mountain laurel trees, peyote. They did use different types of hallucinogens during ritual. We don't know if there was ritual directly before painting or after painting or during painting. We don't know exactly how that went down. Probably not during, because it takes a lot of effort to make a perfectly straight line. But we do know that those types of substances were used by the culture. How they are related to the painting, we don't know yet. Maybe we'll find a way to discover more about that. Another question, is it possible to identify an individual artist through their style or way of illustrating a feline?
That's a very interesting question, and the answer is yes, but Actually, Carolyn Boyd and Ashley Busby, they are studying artistic patterns too, and they identify individual artists doing the same murals. So the answer is yes.
They're starting to be able to identify not only the same artist's hand, but the same paint pot,
Yes.
because of the way that the paint is kind of sucked into the limestone or the way that it acts on the substrate. It's really, really neat to see.
It's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Do we have any other questions? Well, we have so much more that we can share with you about all of the things that we're learning. The Lunch and Learns are super fun, but they are very tiny snippets of everything that's going on at Shimla. So please sign up for our e-newsletter so that you can follow along with us, what we're learning through the Hearthstone project and through other projects that we're doing. We're just constantly discovering new incredible things and just love to share them with you. And we're just so grateful for you for joining. You will receive an email with a survey about the program and a link to the recording. And feel free to share it around. And if you have other questions, send them to info@shimla.org and we will get them answered for you. All right. Thank you, Deanna.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.